Doo-doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo-doo. Rich School, Poor School by Milad Amani. In this week of Rich School, Poor School, we'll talk about what it's like to learn the rules late. Not in a dramatic way, but more in a practical way, and how that shapes your views on money, careers, and confidence. Some people grow up knowing how certain rooms work, and others have to reverse engineer those rules whilst already being in them. We'll discuss the gap and also what happens when you realize that gap. The first topic we'll talk about is walking into rooms that you don't like, that you don't feel like you belong in. Some people, or some rooms, sorry, walking into rooms I didn't feel I was meant for. Some some rooms are familiar to people even before they walk in, and for others, they once they walk in, they feel like they have to earn their place. Now that difference isn't confidence or intelligence. It's just exposure. And I didn't feel like I was meant for certain rooms until much later, and it affected how I spoke, how I thought, and even how I acted. And yeah, the moral of the story is belonging is often learned, not something that is automatic. And to add my personal experience to this, I would say that I don't want to talk about it as if I've mastered this. I don't feel like I belong in every room. And a good example of it is not even in the workplace, like working environment, but it was with my colleagues. And we went for afternoon tea with the team. And I was asking a million questions because I had realized I'd never been for afternoon tea at Fortnum's and Mason's. Like to me, I was like, this is so fancy. Like, do we have to dress up? Do I have to wear a blazer? I was joking that do we drink with our pinkies up? And people around me, the only question they would ask me is, "You've never been to afternoon tea?" And I was like, "Should I have?" And it made me realize that even at 29, I can still feel a lack of belonging because someone that was 21, a trainee, was telling me how I'm overreacting and I'm overthinking it. And I'm like, that's easier for you to say because you've just gone more frequently than myself. And luckily, I feel very comfortable now asking the questions because before I would just follow suit, act like I've been there before, as my mom says. So I would just wait for everyone to walk in first, see if they give their jacket, see if they sit down first, see if they now it's time to drink your tea, see even if we can go toilet. So definitely believe that whenever you feel like you don't belong in that room, you do. You just have to keep revisiting that room and you'll own it one day. That's how simple it is. You're not dumb. You're not lacking confidence. Keep exposing yourself to new things, and you'll never feel like something is strange to you. But you have to take that leap. Yeah, no. Hopefully that shows that even at my age or probably in the future, I'll always feel that sense of lack of belonging. Moving on to moving on to the first time I felt or I realized that confidence is a skill. My name is Millard, and this is something I learned late. I used to think confidence was a personality. Then I watched people who weren't more capable, they were just more certain, and then it clicked. Confidence is not who you are, it's just something you've rehearsed publicly over and over and over again. What that shows is confidence is a skill, and skills can be learned. So anyone can be confident, anyone can learn to be confident. And I am a big advocate of normalizing confidence because I actually realized last year how important confidence was for me. I went on a ski trip with my colleagues off of work, and one colleague was quite drunk and he came up to me and said, "Bro, I'm so proud of you." Asked him why, and he said to me, "I don't think you understand. Like, everything you've done up to now is why you're here. It's when you talk to all these partners and senior partners and you seem so friendly with them. I don't know how you do it. And don't ever change that about yourself because everyone loves that about you." Two things happened in that moment. I felt a sense of affirmation. Like he was confirming that I belong here, but also the fact that confidence was a skill. And I just looked at it as that's just me being me. And that's exactly why I said to him. I said to him, "You can be the same. Like I don't hide it. If you ask me, I'll tell you exactly how to do it because it's not like it's a secret. Anyone can be confident." And that's when I realized confidence is a skill, and not just a skill, but it was the most important skill set that I had, and all because I've just repeatedly tried to be confident in all our areas of my life to the point where it looks like that's who I am, but it's not. Anyone can just be confident, and it was a very good realization because I've been quite confident all my life. I've always asked the questions. And what that shows is if you just ask questions, if you put yourself out there, you can have the same skill set as anyone that's confident. It's just that you need to start. And I just started very young to the point where I don't really feel intimidated by anyone. And for most people, that's not the case. And they have to learn confidence much later because they think it's something that's not accessible to them. But once you start understanding that it's just a skill set that anyone can learn, I think doors will open for you. So, yeah, moving on. Yeah. Learning the money language late. Money isn't just numbers, it's a language. Some people grow up hearing about it every day. They learn how money works, how much things cost, how much career pays, and just how it works in general. Others learn about it when the stakes are real. They have to pay rent, bills, utilities, and when you learn something late, making decisions feels heavier. Not because you're bad at money, it's because you have to kind of translate whilst you're already acting on it. And the hesitation isn't weakness. It's just that it's just what happens when you're exposed late to it. So fluency is all about repetition. It's not instinct. It's just that in state school you're probably just not exposed to that kind of depth about money. But once you start building yourself up, you'll learn it just a bit later than I guess others. But once you start learning, you'll also be fluent. You just have to keep going. Maybe I'll do an extra video to try and explain it in a way that makes more sense. So, yeah, let me know. Now, moving on to code switching and having to edit yourself. Here's the part that people don't talk about. When you're not sure whether you belong, you kind of self edit. You change how you speak, what you say, and even you hide stuff. And this is not an insecurity. This is called adaptation, actually. Code switching is very intelligent. It's just so tiring. Not much to say about this beyond it speaks for itself. Code switching is something that I had to do, as I said, even for the afternoon tea when I go into work. One of the things that I learned, private school kids actually never talk about money. Like genuinely. Like money is never discussed. Experiences, trips, that's discussed. Living once. You have to change that mindset because I realized if you constantly talk about money, it's kind of you put a downer on things. It's difficult, but because you've kind of been that way, you speak about money because it's such a big deal in your life, especially when you're in state school. But the different perspective is actually quite nice. Is people that went to private school are much more well, they're comfortable, so they don't have to worry about money, but they see the world in a nicer way. And I realized it's not always that you need to be talking about money. That open mindedness will allow you to be really adaptable and make that code switching much easier, by the way, without losing yourself. Rewriting that internal voice. The loudest limits are not external, they're internal. They sound like cautiousness. You know, when you're thinking about you should be grateful or you shouldn't push it. I had to actively change that inner voice because it was inherited. It's not something I chose for myself. And your inner voice comes from your environment. So You have to start changing your environment. You have to actively look to change your inner voice. For me, what worked is telling myself that I deserve it all. It took a very long time to build that confidence, but now I could definitely say that it worked in my favor because that internal voice will shape how you think and how confident you are in any room and how much you belong. So you need to tell yourself internally and externally that you belong in that room. Well, I would tell my 18-year-old self, well, if I could say one thing to my younger self, it would be that you are not behind. You were not given a map. So you're figuring out the rules. And once you do, your progress is not linear, it's straight to the moon. It will compound. Late doesn't mean lost. But when I left university, I realized I didn't know what to do next. No one had told me what the next step is. And so I started working at a club for minimum wage, which was, I think, £7.30. I tried to do work experience for the Citizens Advice Bureau to say that I do voluntary work. That wasn't enough. And then I thought, let me pick up a master's. Maybe that will help me with my employability. When I got my first interview at a law firm, I got the job because they had gone to the club I had worked at. Imagine that. And they just automatically assumed that I'm fun because they enjoy their night there. That job paid me 20K. Then in the same year, I became a compliance consultant, having graduated from my master's. So £7.30, 20K, 32K, all in 1 year. Then I became a legal trainee in an investment bank. I got my first offer at a law firm. And then I decided, with that offer in the bag, why don't I move to Hong Kong and be a teacher? Became a teacher. And then, because of the connections I had built, I got a job offer to be a trader. So I became a trader. And I started getting paid £4,400 a month. Like, you can't make this shit up. Like, you can't make it up. And then I came back. I was a trainee for 2 years and now I'm a lawyer. There was no map. I had no map. I had no trajectory. But over time, I started figuring out how to move forward, how to get to the next step and the next step and the next step. And now I'm further than I could ever expect. So, yeah, definitely, you're not behind. And I'm saying this so that everyone else that watches this understands that, especially if you're younger than me, and you feel like you lack guidance, you will figure it out. You just have to be open to every single opportunity because I was open to the club somehow get like I didn't realize it, but that minimum wage club that others might have looked down at was the reason why I got my first job. And that first job led to the second one, and the second one led to the third one. So, as long as you keep the ball rolling, you have hope, you do everything in your means possible, you'll grow exponentially. Let's leave it with doing some self reflection. What happens when you finally learn those rules and now you have this depth to you? When you finally learn the rules, something interesting happens. You don't just fit in, you have a perspective. You have depth, adaptability, and also range. And that combination is dangerous because late learners often see further than anyone else. And at work, I'm described as a breath of fresh air. That's my nickname, a breath of fresh air, because I bring in different ideas, and I've been accepted into I've been accepted into the elite rooms, into the I have a seat at the table. If this helped you see things more clearly, then like, comment, and subscribe.